Have you ever seen this happen? A huge celebrity makes a really exciting announcement, something that should be a total win, but then you look online and the reaction is just not what you expected. Today, we are going to dissect one of these moments piece by piece. We're looking at how a great piece of news can somehow become a magnet for all kinds of negativity, creating this massive online firestorm that seems to come out of absolutely nowhere. So, let's get into it and figure out what really happened.
Okay, so the scene is set on November 22nd, 2025. The news officially drops. Lisa from the K-pop global phenomenon BLACKPINK is going to be a featured artist in the Fortnite festival. Now, for an artist who's already a global superstar, this is a massive crossover. It's a huge career move, a way to connect with millions upon millions of new fans. On paper, this should have been a moment of pure celebration for her and her fan base, right?
But almost instantly, the conversation online just took this sharp, really unexpected turn. Of course, the fans were excited, but alongside all of that, comments just like this one started popping up everywhere. It was so jarring, so dismissive, and honestly, it was only the beginning. This wasn't just a handful of trolls. This was the first sign of a complicated, multi-layered backlash that was just getting started.
And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling in this explainer. How did this happen? I mean, why would a completely positive announcement unleash such a wave of intense, personal, and frankly, really diverse criticism? To get to the bottom of it, we have to untangle the different threads of negativity that all came together and converged on this one single event. So you have this kind of split-screen reality going on. On one side, you've got the artist's dedicated fans, the Blinks, who are, over the moon about this huge collaboration. But on the other side, a completely different conversation was taking shape. A huge wave of criticism started to wash over the announcement. And what's so fascinating here is that it wasn't just one type of complaint. No, it was this complex storm of different grievances all hitting at once.
When you break it down, the backlash really came from three pretty distinct angles that at first glance don't seem related at all. First up, you had people claiming the artist was a total unknown. Second, there was this whole other line of attack that focused on people she was associated with in her personal life. And third, you had the resurfacing of old, unrelated controversies that involved her entire group. So let's take a closer look at how these three threads actually wove together to create this firestorm.
Okay, let's start with that first thread because it's maybe the most baffling one. This is the claim that a member of literally one of the biggest music groups on the planet was a complete nobody.
And the interesting thing about a comment like this isn't just the words themselves, it's the whole attitude behind it. These kinds of posts popped up again and again. It's this performance of ignorance, and it's used as a way to dismiss someone. In the online world, saying who isn't really a question. It's a statement. It's a tactic to try and devalue someone's relevance and their importance, no matter what the objective facts about their fame might say.
And then this whole thread got even weirder. It developed this bizarre subplot where some users started claiming they had confused her with another popular Japanese singer who's also named Lisa. They were suggesting the announcement was a letdown because it wasn't the artist they were hoping for. So this first wave of negativity was really built on this shaky foundation of either real or, more likely, pretend ignorance mixed in with a case of mistaken identity.
But of course, the criticism didn't just stop there. The second thread got way more personal, but it did so in this really indirect, roundabout way. See, this one wasn't really about the artist herself. It was about who she was connected to.
And wow, this quote right here perfectly illustrates this tactic of criticism by association. All of a sudden, the conversation completely pivoted away from Fortnite and onto her rumored boyfriend, Frederick Arnault. This comment ties a bunch of really inflammatory accusations together, but the key thing to notice is how the focus is yanked away from Lisa's professional achievement and slammed onto the alleged background and actions of her partner.
So let's just be really clear about the logic that's happening here. The argument is not she did something wrong. The argument is she is associated with someone who is allegedly connected to things that we find objectionable. This is an incredibly powerful and honestly an increasingly common tactic you see online, where an individual can be held responsible for the real or even just perceived actions of their partners, their family, or their friends.
Okay, so if the first thread was about dismissing her relevance, and the second was about attacking her associations, this third thread, well, this one reached way back into the past. It used this brand new announcement as a hook to drag up old grievances related to her group, BLACKPINK.
This is just a textbook whataboutism move. A user responds to the good news not by talking about the news itself, but by immediately trying to change the subject to a completely different controversy from the past. You can just feel the sarcasm in, "Yeah, that's cool." It's used as this cynical pivot to dredge up a totally unrelated issue from the group's history.
And this right here shows us one of the fundamental rules of the modern internet. Nothing ever really goes away. Any new success, any moment in the spotlight can be used by critics as a brand new opportunity to relitigate old controversies. The new event just becomes a convenient vehicle to make sure that old problems are never, ever forgotten.
So just imagine this for a second. You have these 3 different attacks all happening at the same time. People pretending they don't know who she is, people attacking her through her associations, and others digging up old group controversies. So how in the world did her massive, highly dedicated, and very organized fan base respond to this absolute firestorm? The #1 reaction from the fans, overwhelmingly, was just pure confusion. You could feel their whiplash. They saw a great announcement and just could not understand the source or the sheer intensity of what they started calling a sudden hate train. From their perspective, all this negativity just seemed to materialize out of thin air, and it felt completely out of proportion to the actual news. So what did they do? Well, their main line of defense, especially against that first bizarre thread of criticism, was to just state the obvious. They came back with receipts. They pointed to her enormous global following, her record-breaking streaming numbers, her status as a global fashion icon, all of it to fight back against this narrative that she was some unknown. They met these claims of anonymity with a flood of cold, hard evidence.
Okay, so we've looked at the announcement, we've unpacked the 3 threads of the backlash, and we've seen the fan reaction. Now let's pull the lens back. What does this whole case study really teach us about how online conversations and celebrity culture actually work today?
Here's the most crucial takeaway. This wasn't one single unified backlash against one thing. No, it was a perfect storm, created by 3 separate phenomena all colliding at the exact same time. First, you have a convergence of different groups who all have different complaints. Then, you add in the incredibly potent tool of criticism by association. And finally, you have the internet's perfect unforgiving memory, which lets past issues be weaponized at any given moment.
And this, right here, is the key. In today's media world, a single announcement can act like a lightning rod. It doesn't create the lightning, but it attracts all sorts of pre-existing and often totally unrelated static and negativity that's already in the air. The backlash against Lisa wasn't really about her being in Fortnite. The Fortnite news was just the excuse, the catalyst, that everyone needed to bring all their other issues to the surface.
Which really leaves us with a much bigger, much trickier question to think about. As our lives get more and more public, more interconnected, where is the line? Are we only responsible for our own actions, or do we also carry the weight of the actions of everyone in our orbit? This case shows that for public figures, that line is getting blurrier every single day. And it really forces us to ask, where does one person's identity truly end, and where do their associations begin?